Okay, welcome everybody to paint night.
Sorry, I walked away.
So everybody here has already done this. So in your kit, or if you didn't, if you have a kit, I guess, you have a piece of masking tape. I put a little parchment on the back of it. You are going to trace either a dime, where am I at? A dime or a penny, and this will become your sun sticker stencil. Like always, I think a lot of you that are doing this virtual have been doing it with us for a while. Up to you if you want to put tape around the corners of the edges of your canvas. So this is the sun setting on the savanna in Africa. So I'm going to hold this up here so you guys can see. So this canvas is 10 inches tall, okay? And can everybody notice that, whoops, sorry. Can everybody notice that the sun is a little below halfway and a little off to the left? When we paint our silhouette of our acacia tree, you can always choose to do things different. You don't have to exactly follow me. But if you want to put the little giraffes on there, or you want to make your own little lion silhouette and stuff, kind of off to the right, that's why we're gonna have the sun a little over on the left. So on your canvas, let me see if I can hold this more straight. On your canvas, so it's a little below halfway and a little off to the left, you're gonna peel the back off of your little sticker, your little sun. And push it down. You probably can't see that. So I guess it's kind of dirty. But when you get your little sticker, your little sun stencil on your canvas, you are going to want to press it down really hard, because it is going to be a stencil. We're going to paint right over it. And then at some point, we are also going to pick it. We are going to pick it and get the sticker off. But before that, as you can see, we're going to paint right over it. So we want to kind of make sure the edges are sealed. So for those of you online, I'm putting the picture back up there. Did you tell them which one? What is it called? W. Anna?
This one is?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, so those of you that are doing it virtual, you'll see the one that has the picture on it. You can pin that, so the finished picture is always in front of you if you want.
Well, they want to pin you so they can see what you're doing.
Okay, whatever.
But then they can look back at it. They want to be able to see that.
I will hold this up for you guys. This is kind of difficult.
Right? It's harder.
I taught school for 10 years, but I am so thankful that I was not a teacher during this last year. I would have been nuts trying to teach virtual and in person and all. Okay, so now that we have that done, so let's look at your paints. So you have a yellow, you have an orange, we have a light pink one here. I'm not sure, magenta. We have magenta, we have a red. Those of you that are in person, take a look at your paints, because one of the dark paints is a really dark brown, burnt umber, I believe. And the other one is black. So just make sure that you can tell which one is which. And white and violet. Okay. So tonight's painting, we're going to start off. We'll be using our larger 1-inch brush, our blending brush. Could you adjust tonight's paint? We're going to start off. I can't see. Wendy, what are they texting up there? Adjust something?
They said they couldn't see the bottom.
I know, that's because it's small.
Yeah, I will work on that. Because I have to work on this.
Just tell them. It's all black. There's nothing you can see. Look at on this 8-inch painting. Uh-oh, which one has a battery?
Oh. Yes. I have to.
That's so funny.
Don't worry. I got it.
You didn't know you were coming to a comedy show tonight, did you? This is like the who's on first base. Okay, So for those of you virtual, I would say, measure with my thumb, at least the bottom inch of the canvas is just totally black with my signature on it. That's all. So until we can change that, that's all you're missing. It's more important you see the sky anyway. So we're using a 2-inch brush. And for those of you here, has anybody ever been to Africa? Have you? Does this picture look at all like Africa? Oh, okay. Okay. So raise of hands. Some of you I know have been coming to the virtual paint nights. Of those, just raise your hand if you have done acrylic painting before. So I kind of know, okay? And we have a lot that have not, okay? So this is going to be our blender brush. The 1-inch brush is our blender brush. We are also going to use, you might have one like this. This is mine from home, or you might have this, where is this other one at? There we go. These are called palette knives, okay? So we are going to use our palette knife like a little spoon right now, okay? So I have to open my paints here. So usually, unlike watercolors, you don't use a lot of water with your paints, with your acrylic paints. We use water sometimes in our brushes just to help the paint flow better, but we don't want to water down our acrylic paints. So, but when we use our palette knife, we want it to be clean. So you're going to use a lot of paper towels tonight. So the helpers will make sure that you have paper towels. I usually go through tons of paper towels, okay?
We've got more paper towels.
So you have your palette knife. So we are going to put little gobs of paint, little, scoop up little dabs of paint right down the center of our painting, okay? So we'll start at the top with the violet, the purple. So you just scoop up a little paint like you're using a little spoon and you just plop it there on the top. It's like what? Like a 1/4-inch paint, a little dab on the end. And after you put your purple spot on, you are going to clean off your paintbrush or your palette. And the thing with the palette knife, when you clean it, make sure you clean the edges of it too, or it will carry paint onto your next area, okay? So you just, and the palette knives are meant to bend like this, whether you're right-handed or left-handed. You push with your finger, to make it move. So you just push it on and scrape it onto your deal. Clean it off. So we have purple, then we're going to put white. Then we're going to leave a space and put another white. So we have 2 white. Clean off your palette knife. So there's my palette knife, nice and clean. Make sure I'm putting these on. Violet, white, magenta. So remember our magenta color, which is like, it looks like a pinkish red. Not red, not the dark red you have, but the pinkish red one. Why can I not? There it is. This is what's going to go in between your 2 whites. So you pick it up, put it between your 2 whites. No, you won't need that. It just, can you see mine here? Here.
It looks a lot bigger on the screen than it is.
Looks a
on
lot
the
bigger on the
actual-
screen and we're using a smaller thing. So it's
So
just
like
like,
a 1/4 of a teaspoon.
yeah, if you put on your palette knife, your little dabs like a 1/4 of an inch from the tip, that's enough. So we have purple, white, magenta, white. Now we're going to do orange. Remember to clean your palette knife after each one. Orange. Clean. 2 yellows. And by this time, by the time we get to the yellow here, we should be at the bottom of our sun. Okay. Well, yeah, mine, I could scoot this down there. Yeah. Okay,
Don't worry, because when you start to spread it out, you can move it down a little bit.
yeah,
Where it is exactly right now. It doesn't.
okay. Your index finger is what pushes down on it. There you go. So you're used to holding the pencil like this. When you hold your palette knife, open the palm of your hand and lay the handle in your hand and then flip it over. It's the same hold that you would use if you were using a pencil and you were shading with it. Okay, so instead of holding it like a pencil, like this, you're gonna open the palm of your hand and lay it upside down in your hand, grab a hold of it, flip it over, and your index finger is going to give the little push on it, okay? Okay, how are the kids, how are the people online doing? Good? That's the hardest thing, doing it online, because I can't see them, so I don't know if timing, we're doing okay. So below the sun. So here we've taken our yellow down to about the sun area here. So below the sun, we're going to put red, then burnt umber. Yes. So the red is pretty powerful, so I'd use just a little of it for right now. Make sure you clean your palette knife always, and the edges of the palette knife. And then you're going to put the brown. Did all the canvases get used that were up there? I was just thinking, because she's just sharing with her daughter, she might want to. Oh. Now, are you anxious to start painting? Because now we've got this on here. Clean your palette knife off. We're done with the palette knife for a bit, so you might want to dip it in the water and give it a good clean. Burnt umber, yeah, the brown. Yes. Red, and then brown. So your colors should look like purple, white, magenta, pinkish, white, orange, yellow, red, burnt umber. Okay. And you can just set aside your palette knife for now. So a little bit on brushes. So we're going to use our blending brush, which is our widest brush. And this you're going to hold like you hold a pencil, but you're going to hold it very lightly. Okay, so that just like that, so that you can, I mean, for those of you in person here, like this, so you can flip it easily back and forth, back and forth. Don't hold it tight, stiff. It's just back and forth. You can even practice in the air. This is an 8 by 8 inches wide, so you're going to sweep it 8 inches. Okay. I got to read what my directions begin with. Okay. So we are going to start with our yellow paint. Okay. Nope. Yeah, we can.
Especially
Dip it-
because
dip
the
it
paint
in-
is pretty heavy body.
Dip it, the paint is pretty heavy. So dip it in the water and then just wipe it off on the paper towel, because we don't want a lot of water. And then we're going to go with our yellow, and we're just going to sweep it back and forth all the way across, go all the way to the edge. That's the other thing too. You go around, if you've taped it, and make sure that your edges are sealed. Because like this stencil, we kind of don't want the paint seeping underneath it. Although I always do have it and have to paint white over it. Okay, okay, go ahead. Sweep your yellow side to side, get it blended all the way across. Hold your brush like a pencil. Yep, you're gonna go right over the sun. Oh, you can move it, pick it out and move it if you want. Okay, you have your yellow. Do not clean your brush and do not put it back in the water. So now acrylic paint too dries pretty fast. So while our paint is wet here, we're going to move up to the yellow or orange, sorry, from the yellow moving up to the orange and kind of blending it back and forth. And what you're,
You can't see the whole thing. So I don't know if you need to be holding it or if you're just trying to show people by holding it. But if you want to lay it on the table, people can probably see more.
I think it gets a glare though. That's okay.
Oh, I never got the the video lights that are in the tech room.
Okay, now go up and blend in your white with your orange. What you're looking for is just a smooth transition. So it doesn't look like you have stripes, that it's a smooth transition from the yellow up. Okay. And I would take a paper towel and gather some of my paint off my brush. Wipe a little off my brush right now. Don't need to fully clean my brush. And now I'm going to start with purple and come down to my orange, okay? So purple at the very top. You can always pick up more paint if you see that it's a little bit thin there. Stick your brush in your purple and coming down to my white and then to my magenta and slowly bringing that down. Okay, those of you in person, I'll walk around. Here online, here you can see we have a value gradation from the top down to the yellow. Our art focuses tonight are color, shape, and contrast. The contrast is going to come from the silhouette. The shapes will come from the shapes that are silhouetted, the acacia tree and the animals. And the color is just this value change that we're going to paint on first, okay? Those of you online have an instruction sheet that shows what you're aiming for. Let me move it back. You see how it looks a little stripy right here? So just go back and forth. Wipe it off. Yep, just back and forth. How would you then you're back and forth again? Where were you thinking? It will always look better arm's length away. So hold it out and look at it. When you're looking at value gradation, it is really good for you to split. Because you lose all detail and you just see the value change. So hold it arm's length away, look at it and look. We're gonna add files that can be on top of that, but
Thank you, Wendy.
okay. You can just add more. Wipe your brush off. It does use that wrong first. Yeah. So.
I just did my brush. Yeah. Well, pretty.
Bob does gonna block you guys from seeing the action of the
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Not
emphatic there.
Quite good, quite good. That's really good. Okay.
Different configurations do I have to figure out to make this thing work?
I see.
Is that better? Is that blocking you guys from seeing now? Okay. Yeah, she'll talk to you about it.
All of our guests know that. So we often use it.
We're closer to each other than we've been in a minute. Everybody needs to be aware of their breath.
Yeah, we'll look at that. Hold it far away. Is it trying? Beautiful.
Okay, we're gonna go on to the red and the burnt umber. Just wipe it with a paper towel. Okay, online, we're back. So wipe off your brush. Just so it doesn't have gobs of paint in it. And now it might be a little dry after you wipe it off because of painting. So dip it in the water and tap it on the side. For those of you online, I'm just dipping it in the water. Don't splash on your painting. Tap it off on the side. Wipe it on my paper towel. In painting, it's just like in watercolor. Whatever's wet sucks. That is the mantra. Whatever's wet sucks. And I mean, not wet, whatever's dry. Whatever's dry sucks. So my paintbrush is wet. My paper towel is dry. When I touch my paper towel to my paintbrush, my paper towel sucks the water and the paint out of my paintbrush. So we just want to tap it a few times just to suck a little bit of that water out. And now we're going to go same fluid side to side movement. And we're going to, you might have to tip, I got to put mine on my hair. I just use my palette knife to get my palette started here because I'm working out of a cup. So with my palette knife, I scoop some yellow on there. Try my palette knife off. So my yellow, you can touch yours and you can see the yellow is dry. So the yellow is not going to blend with the red, and I want it to blend with the red. So I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to put one corner of it. Just raise your hand and they'll come around and give it to you. Just let her know. So do you see how I have yellow on the corner of my brush? My red is still wet. So I'm going to lay my corner of my brush that has the yellow on it up against the yellow. Okay, and I'm going to do my backwards or my side to side strokes. My yellow in my paintbrush is going to mix with my red. And I'm just moving down, picking up my brown. I need more brown, so I'm going to pick up more brown on my brush. And mine kind of, yeah, scrape it a little bit, or take, if where you put your brown just made a hard puddle, you can take your palette knife and kind of scrape it a little bit. It's just taking us too long to paint it. And I'm just going to, I'm needing quite a bit more brown, so you might need quite a bit more brown, I'm seeing. The burnt umber, I'm just sweeping it back and forth. Don't worry about the bottom inch because we're going to put black on that. But I want my brown to gently blend into my red. The red on the sunset painting is at the horizon. So that's going to be our land line. So I'm blending my brown in with it. And while my red is wet, I'm going to wash my brush off and get the brown out of it. So wash your brush, your blending brush, or if you're at home, you can just grab another brush. Get my brown kind of out of it. And I want this to have more yellow in it across the sun area. So I have a pretty clean brush right now. I'm going to dip it right straight in my yellow. My red is still a little damp, so it should blend in with it. Okay, see how I blended a little more yellow in with my red just to bring it up to the sun area. So I want to do a check with those that are online. So can you let Wendy know or show us, turn on your video and do a thumbs up if time-wise you are with us here? We're down to having our burnt umber done. If you are following directions, we are on step 7. Once you feel comfortable enough with your painting and the colors that you have on there, mind you, we're going to put clouds in and cover up some of this. You're going to be putting animals down here. So if you have a little blob of dark brown here, don't worry, you'll paint over it. But it's now time to either put your brush up here, your 1-inch brush up in your water and leave it, or clean it off. But don't lay it down with paint in it, okay? And we're going to create our palette. So did they pick up kits remotely? Okay. So some of you have kits and your paint is in a little cup like this. Those of you in person, you already have your palette. We need to set up our palette. So I'm going to use my palette knife again, and I'm going to give myself a pretty hefty glob of white. And yellow. And I'm going to put some orange on my palette. And clean my palette knife after each time. And some red. So these are the colors that are going to be our clouds. So we've got our background sky color painted. Hold it up at arm's reach, squint at it, make sure you kind of have a flow there in the colors. So here's what my palette looks like. This is for my clouds now. Some of you kids probably know, what are these clouds called? The low clouds that are stratus? Are they? The low clouds that go, not cumulus. Cumulus is the big billowy ones, right? So these are more, we're going to create kind of stratus clouds where they're going to be horizontal. And we're going to do that with our palette knife. So not a brush, a palette knife. Okay. And we have on our palette these colors. Your sky should be pretty dry. You can touch it with your finger, or you can wave it. Or those of you in person, if you can look at it at an angle and it's shiny, that means it's wet. So look at it at an angle. Up here where our sky is, the brown can still be drying. Those of you in person or at home, we have a blow dryer. It'll dry it in seconds. Plugged in over there against the wall. So if you need to go over and dry your painting a little bit, you can.
You know, red cell phone.
Is this yours?
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
And I have all 3 laptops working to do other stuff, but they're asking, a lot of people didn't download the instruction sheet from the Eventbrite listing. And so I'm trying to find my cell phone so that I can send myself the instructions to, because the laptop, of course, my laptop is the one that's recording, and
We're losing all the laptops.
so I can't use that one in order to.
You
get
sure you
and
had it
send
in
to
here?
people.
Here, I got her.
I don't even know if my ringer's turned.
Ringing.
Maybe I took it upstairs one of the times I ran. What? It's fine. I just don't know how to access the document to put it in the chat for people. without my laptop, which I can't.
I don't have the digital version of it. I'm so sorry. I'll just be better about giving instructions for those of you online.
Well, I think they want it for the traceable,
Oh,
for the giraffe.
yeah.
But now that the event started, they can't
Oh,
find it on the Eventbrite.
okay. We're gonna go ahead and start with our clouds. So back to our palette knife. So remember, you're opening the palm of your hand, putting your palette knife upside down in the palm of your hand, grabbing a hold of it, and flipping it over. So your index finger now is what's controlling your palette knife. Okay? So with our palette knife, I gotta read how I did it. So I'm gonna take my palette knife and here's the top of my palette knife. Here's the bottom of my palette knife. Here's my edge. I am going to put paint on the edge. So I'm going to pick up and I'm going to put yellow on one edge. And I'm going to turn my palette knife and put white on the other edge. So here's what my palette knife looks like. This is the bottom of my palette knife. White on one edge, yellow on one edge. Turn it over, looks like this. And I am going to take my palette knife now and I'm going to like I'm cutting sideways. Okay. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just with my white and my yellow. I'm just going from one edge to the other edge and I'm just putting some clouds across my sky. Well, like you can, Bob Ross, in your world, the cloud can look however you like it. It can go all the way across the sky or part way across the sky. And palette knives are palette knives. They're not brushes, so they're not going to hold a lot of paint. You might get 2 swipes and you're out of paint. So go back and do the same thing. Little yellow, little white. Coming in from the side with some clouds. Okay. Just like how our sky changed to be a darker violet at the top, our clouds are too. So we're going to take a little orange with a little red, same type of technique. See the bottom of my palette knife? That's the bottom. Here's the top. Okay. So I got kind of on the edges. So towards the top, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to make a little bit darker clouds. Orange and red. Yep, just like you're slicing across. It is a little bit, but then you turn it so it's just on the edge. Because some parts of the cloud you might want to be a little thicker. So you'll have your knife a little flatter and then you'll be slicing it off. The darker clouds are up at the top. They're going to get lighter when we come down. And we are going to take and make some yellow and white ones. Clean off your palette brush. Go back to your white and your yellow. And we are going to slice right across our sun with the yellow and the white. Red, orange on the back of my palette knife. Whoa, there. That's the back. Here's the top. And I'm using my index finger for pressure on my palette knife. And I'm just slicing it across the painting. Give a little bit of clouds. And a little bit of the white and yellow slicing across my sun here. Always wiping it off. So here's the finished painting kind of for proportions so you can see. And in my painting here that I did, do you see the tall giraffe? His head's about the same level as the sun. So I want a little bit, he's going to be black. So I want him to be silhouetted against the back. So it looks nice, I think, in my world, to have a little of these. Oh, there I added another little white cloud. But a little bit of the light stretchy clouds across the bottom. Kind of, yeah, across the bottom. Kind of where my giraffe is going to be. And I can tell just being in the room, but I can tell too with those that are doing it virtual. Everybody needs to take a pause and take a deep breath. Your hands are purple from clenching the palette knife too tight. You just relax. Yes, happy little clouds in your world. Light hold on your palette knife, not the death grip. Because our sun is setting, the light from the sun is going to hit the bottom of the clouds, right? You guys been looking at our sunsets here with the smoke in the air? That is like the only good thing about smoke in the air. It makes for amazing, or dust when the wind kicks up. I moved here from living 17 years in Phoenix, and there are amazing sunsets down there because the wind blows that dust up in the air and it's just beautiful. But our sun is low, our clouds are higher up in the atmosphere, right? And so the sun is going to reflect onto the bottom. So make sure when you are done with your palette knife that you wipe it off clean. I can't tell if you guys have a question, just shout out to me because I know you're raising your hands to get more paint. So in your paintbrushes, you should have the very smallest little brush, a little tiny liner brush. Okay. You can hold this up at arm reach, squint your eyes and look at it and say, well, it kind of looks like clouds, but kind of doesn't. Don't worry, it will. But we're gonna clean our palette brush, set it aside so you can breathe a sigh of relief. And we're gonna pick up your liner brush. Here's my little liner brush. And now only with white, I'm going to put it in my white paint. I'm going to dip it in my clean water here and cap it off. I'm going to put it in my white paint and I'm going to roll it on my palette so that I don't have gobs on my paintbrush. And now I'm going to come back and I'm just going to add little sporadic, not a straight line, but little white at the bottom of my clouds. So I dip it in the white, roll it on my palette, and I'm just coming in here to give a little bit of the last rays of the sun on the bottom of my clouds. So dip in the white, roll on your palettes, don't have a gob, and there, can you see how I've added a little bit of white? It's the sun reflecting at the bottom of the cloud. I guarantee that you're going to set this up in your house, going home tonight thinking, I'm not sure if that looks very good. I don't know how I did that. And tomorrow morning when you come out and first see it, you're going to go, I am amazing. I am a Van Gogh. Everything looks better when you step away from it, right? Different perspective. For those of you online that do have instruction sheets, we are down on step 10. So it's using the liner brush to add the white highlight to the bottom of the clouds. 42. No, 19. You asked me if it was gonna be hard. I said no, right? We just do it step by step. So, Lori, is there toothpicks in the kitchen or in the staff room kitchen? See if you can. I think it will help. If we were at home, you would use tweezers. If you have long fingernails, you might be able to do that. Sorry, guys, don't have fingernails. It's gonna be hard for you to pick your son off. Lori, no, Lori went to look. Lori went to look in the kitchen, but
I looked in the kitchen.
oh,
already,
did ya?
yeah.
Oh, Kathleen.
Unless there's some in this kitchen.
She said. So we're gonna pick the sun off. So before we pick the sun off, we want to make sure that you have a few little white streaky clouds. I can't see up there. Let's see. My sun is really camouflaged. Right there is my sun. So make sure you have a few little yellow, white, streaky clouds going across your sun. And look at it at an angle and see if the paint is dry. If you have a fingernail, you can kind of pick your paint, your tape. And you're just going to pull off your stencil. Voila! Okay. If you don't have a long fingernail, ask your neighbor who has a long fingernail. Oh, you know what you could use? The point of your palette knife. You might be able to, if you can't get a hold of it with your fingernail, you might be able to pick a little bit with the palette knife. Oh, here comes toothpicks. Do you guys want toothpicks? Yeah, just give it to them so they can.
I apologize. Completely folded it.
That's okay. They probably have one at home. They can use the palette knife tip. So once you get your sticker pulled off, you're going to paint your sun white with your little liner brush.
I don't know where I was looking, where you guys were looking, but everywhere I
Okay.
looked, they were.
So we pick off our sun. And now I'm going to go back with just straight white and my liner brush. And I'm going to paint my sun white. This helps a lot too, in case your paint bled a little bit underneath your sticker. So paint your sun so it's all white, but don't glob the paint on. We just want a thin layer of white on there. I didn't even know. I think you can buy canvases that aren't primed. Most of the canvases you buy at Hobby Lobby or any of the craft stores or even order online say they're primed. That means they've been coated with like two or more layers of it's called gesso. It's a white base paint, base color to put on it. Also helps so your paints go smoother. But we want to cover this with acrylic white paint. So once you pull your sticker off, paint, even though it's white, that's the gesso white that's showing there. So paint it with your acrylic. And then we're going to set that to dry. You'll be glad to know we're moving on to step 13. So while you guys are doing that, I'm going to get a few pictures. Does anybody not have any pictures? So sorry. This is like an in progress picture, and then I will use. Oh. Bingo. So if you're done, you can start. Expand your fingers. Go to the blow dryer. I'm gonna, oh. Actually, I lied. We are gonna use our 1-inch brush again. So while your sun is drying, you could actually go on to the next step because that's gonna be painting our black. So pull your brush out of your water there. Clean it off, wipe it off. And then we're just going to use our black. Make sure you're using black, not brown. So I have my black on my brush. And I'm going to just start at the bottom and paint the bottom of my canvas here black. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah, you can use either black. The black in the cup is mostly for the trees because it's very thin and it's
Yeah.
also permanent. So don't get that black from the cup on you. The thicker black is probably easier to put on the bottom of your canvas, but the black in the cup is for, sorry, I didn't know you guys had the black in the cup already. The black in the cup is just for the trees because it's a lot more fluid and easier to paint the limbs and stuff with.
Oh. Okay, so I painted the bottom of my canvas black, about 1 inch, with my big brush. Now I am done with my big brush. You can set it in the water for later. Huh? No, not really. It will kind of blend up to the brown. You don't need to. You have in your kit, it's not your liner brush. You might have a little like 1/4 inch brush that's tapered, or it might be straight. I'm not sure. But it's not your 1-inch brush and it's not your liner brush. So it's the other brush, an angle brush. Okay. So we're going to use our thicker black paint for right now. And in your little world, you're going to create that horizon line. Okay. So I'm going to just decide wherever I want this to be. And it's maybe going to have a bump, maybe another little bump. It doesn't have to be completely straight. The thicker one. And I'm just going to create this horizon line in there. I'm just thinking about it. Maybe.
Probably a little bit in the area.
Yeah, it's in the burnt umber area. I'm gonna give myself a little hill back here. It's just whatever you want your horizon to look like. And then once I have given my land form here on the horizon line, while I'm using my little angled brush, I can just come back in here and paint over any brown that's showing there. So that's just silhouetted black. My ground is all like black. Okay, we are going to move on to our silhouetted acacia tree. So I love learning things. I really love learning. So I did a little research on this acacia tree. And let me tell you, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 facts about acacia tree. Okay. Number 1, they are found in mostly in Australia and Africa. They are not, my husband said I said the wrong word. It's not ionic. It's like they're often the symbol of the African savanna.
Iconic?
Iconic. I said ionic. He goes, no, that's not the right word. Iconic. What'd you say it is?
Iconic.
Iconic. Yeah, an icon. They're like the symbol of the savanna. So here I'm going to show you. Here is what the tree looks like in real life. Okay. It really does look like that. Those are pictures of actual photographs, not photoshopped or anything. Here's one just like we're doing right here of the trees. Okay. So there are over 1,300 species, so 1,300 different kinds of the trees. Yeah, the one you created is the new species. One of the species is known as the giraffe thorn acacia tree. So is my challenge to you tonight to actually go home and look it up because it is amazing. I'm sure most of you have been to zoos and you've tried to feed the giraffes and they have that ridiculously long sweeping tongue that comes out. They actually, the tree protects itself because it has very long needle thorns on it. And they aren't very far apart. But the giraffes take their tongue and weave it between the thorns and eat the leaves. And a lot of times, well, here's a little giraffe right here. They just prune the leaves off the bottom of the tree by putting their tongue up through the thorns and pulling the leaves off. The acacia tree though too has a protector thing. Kids, what's it called? It's their ability, a defense mechanism. If a predator comes and starts to damage the tree actually swells up the leaves and sends out like this toxic smell, and it can be smelled a long ways away. And the other trees will immediately, because they're tenderhearted, they see their friends in trouble and their leaves will start producing the same kind of toxin that will eventually kill their predators when they eat it. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. But it has this shape. It has this shape that we're going to paint. The leaves aren't very big. And so this canopy shape allows it to have the most sun with the tiny leaves that it has. So that's why it becomes shaped like that. So inside the thorns, they're hollow. And so there are stinging ants that go and live in the thorns. And when they decide to leave, because they drill little holes in to get into the empty thorns. But when the ants leave, guess what? The wind whistles through the thorns and the trees actually whistle when the wind comes. So it's like the trees also are like a musical instrument. Okay. And now for those of you that are here in person, acacia trees are the source of something called gum arabic, which is used in Dun, 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 dun. Chewing gum. Paints that we're using tonight have gum arabic in them. Watercolor paints have it. Candy has gum arabic in it. Cosmetic, medicine, and it's also used when you produce silk and paper. So very important tree. So those of you that are here in person, if you'd like to, that's watermelon gum. You may have your gum now. But it ties in with our trees now. Isn't it interesting though to learn about that kind of stuff? I just love it. Whistling protective trees. So while I've been talking, we've been letting our black dry. We're getting close to being finished with our painting. So we are going to work on our tree. So we're going to work on the left side of our painting if you've chosen to put the tree on the left side. So we're going to put our tree on one side and we're going to put our silhouette of our animals, if you want to, on the opposite side. So this also helps us so that we're painting on one side, then we can paint on the other side and let that side dry, okay? So using your angled brush, you're going to paint your tree. And if you're not here in person and have the more liquid black, you need to dip your brush in water. I'm gonna put on my palette the paint I'm gonna use. So I'm gonna put a little black on my palette. This is especially for those that are doing this online. Those in person, you're gonna use your thinner black paint. The ones that are in person, you have a thinner black paint in a little cup. Okay, but I'm going to make mine thinner. So I'm going to take a little bit of water and mix it in with my black. This is just going to help my paint to flow a little easier. And you're going to create your species of tree. Okay, so kind of look at your picture and decide where you want it to be. Here's a finished one. So I started my trunk down here. It's like maybe 1/4 inch or so thick at the bottom. And I brought it up. Can you see how far above my sun it is? You don't want to have the branches or the leaves of your tree over your sun. We got to leave the sun there because that really is dramatic. So you're going to bring your tree up over your sun. So just start over here, making your I kind of shake my brush just because I don't want, not really have a straight trunk. Okay, so I have a little trunk. And then because I'm using an angled brush, I painted my trunk with my brush like this, like pretty flat. Now I'm going to turn it so I'm using it more on the narrower side. And I'm going to come up here and just create, and I'm raising the pressure on my paint, on my brush. So it gets thinner and thinner. Okay. So I painted the trunk with the brush kind of flat, right? Then I'm going to take and I'm going to turn my brush sideways a little bit. So I'm using the very bottom of my brush. And I'm going to come out, make a little branch, just lifting it slightly, give another little branch here. And you're just going to create some branches on your tree. If your paint is not fluid enough, you need to dip your brush in the water a little bit. So then go right off my paper or my canvas here. And remember, we're working with that canopy shape. So my branches are going to kind of all in poking up at kind of the same angle. I mean, the same length. See how my branches on the top of my tree are kind of the same length right here? Because that, when I go to put my leaves in, I want it to have this canopy shape. Remember, here was the tree. See how squirrely those branches are? Like they kind of twist, and these are a little bit more straight, but you can see kind of twisty, turny. And once you create one, if you want to have another one in your picture, you can put, you know, perspective. If it's smaller, it's going to look like it's farther away. I'm going to add one on my little hill. You can also add little silhouette of maybe some long stem grass. Again, I'm holding my brush very loosely, and instead of holding it at an angle, I'm holding it 90 degrees. So here I am holding it at an angle. Here I am holding it 90 degrees. Can you see the difference?
Perpendicular to your hand.
Yeah. So here I'm holding it at an angle. Now I'm going to turn it. So I'm holding it straight up and down from my canvas. And I'm going to come down here if you want and add some grass kind of from the bottom of my tree and kind of whatever you want here. Kind of cool to create your own landscape, right? However you see it. Maybe someday you'll go there and you'll see that and you'll remember, hey, I painted that. I know that place. It looks kind of like a Halloween painting right now, doesn't it? I don't have a fan brush. Can you get me a fan? Look, chicken. The other brush you have is called a fan brush because it looks like a fan. And that's what we're going to make our leaves with. So this is, for those of you here, this is our fan brush. This is our fan brush. Whoa. Okay. So I'm going to dip it in a little water because my black is getting kind of dry and thick here. I can just use the water here. This is what my brush looks like. Looks like a bad hair day when I get paint on it. See that? Let me put it over the palette so you can see. See that? That's what the fan brush looks like when it gets paint on it. You can practice on your palette. You are just pouncing it. You'll see the first time you put paint on it and you pounce it, it's pretty thick. The more you pounce it, the lighter it gets. Sorry. Okay. So dab it, you're just pouncing it. And again, I am holding the paintbrush not at an angle. I am holding it perpendicular to my palette. So you can practice like pouncing it, turning it a little bit, see what kind of shapes you get. Because that is what you are going to do when you go to paint it. That's too much. You're going to come in here and you are just going to add your leaves. And see, you went right over those amazing clouds you made, but that's okay. They're in the background now. They take second seat now. And remember the shape of the tree that I showed you? It's like it's kind of like a canopy. They're kind of flat across the top. You can turn it a little bit so that you are just using the crazy ends of your fan. Look at that fan brush. You're just using the crazy ends of it to give those very top little silhouettes up there. I made some down here, so I'm going to put some down here. You just do this until you feel like your tree has enough leaves. I always dip it in my paint. Sorry. Always dip it in my paint and then onto my palette. Just because I want to be able to control how much paint is coming out. And if I dip it in the paint and then go straight to my canvas, ooh, those first few, I'm not sure. I'm not very confident about how much paint is coming off of that.
Yeah.
You may not say negative words in my class. I am getting better at this, you say. I'm improving. I am finding opportunities to improve. And there are no mistakes, right?
In my world.
Then they will look like this. And if they don't, well, just dip your brush again and add some more leaves and cover it up. And when you feel like saying something negative about yourself, look at your neighbors and give them a compliment. That will help you. That will help pull you out of your negative mood. Just as long as you don't look at your neighbors and say, that's an amazing horse you have there when we're all painting trees. Okay. I'm kind of done with mine. If you look at the real pictures of them, look at this silhouette. It looks pretty rounded on the end. These green trees are kind of come out to points. This silhouette kind of comes out to a point, but you can decide what to do with it. Fan brushes are a little fragile because you see the bristles are really fine. So please make sure and clean it off and dry it when you're done. We'll wash all the brushes good with a little soap when we're done, but this just helps it to wipe it. Those amazing wacko bristles there need to be tenderly taken care of. Okay, we are on step 17 of 19. Okay, those of you that are doing this virtually, maybe you haven't done this with us before, but if you have a question you want to ask me or you want to say something, you just need to type it in the chat and Wendy will see it and we will get it answered. Wendy, I don't have a little piece of cardboard. So for our animals here, you need your giraffes. If you want to do giraffes or if you want to freehand your own, you're fine. And a little carbon tracing paper. We're not going to cut it out. We're going to use a little carbon tracing paper. So you put your picture on the top and the carbon paper is, I got to get one to see. It's got a dull side, like a really gray side, and a shinier side. Okay, look at it so you can see. This actually is the shinier side. Here's the gray side. Look at, if I turn this like this, can you see? I want the dark side, the shiny side on my canvas. So I'm going to put the gray side underneath my, what I want to trace. And you do not need to put them in this position. I just drew them that way. But I am going to place my, the graphite paper is pretty sensitive. So if you press down with your fingertips, it's going to press your fingertip onto here. So you want to be really careful with it. So I am going to take and lay, I'm going to lay this down. I'm eyeballing. If it helps you, I don't have the scissors here, but it helps you, you can cut that off right there. So you're right, so you can see the end of their legs, but you want their legs to touch in the black. So put them down in the ground. And for me, I'm actually going to take my hand and hold with my, I'm right-handed. So I'm going to hold this other side where the little baby giraffe is, or the one that's farther behind. I'm going to kind of hold it up so it's not, I don't want to get graphite tracing paper down on my son. And now you're just going to take your pencil. Remember where you started. I'm starting under his chin, her chin or whatever. And I'm going to, pressing pretty hard with your pencil, I'm going to trace around my giraffe. Yeah. So I've got my ring finger under, you don't have to do it this way. I have my ring finger under the left edge of my paper, holding it up from my canvas so that I can hold my paper down here. And I'm just going to trace. Around his little tiny horns here. Just kind of need an idea of where they're at. You can fine tune it when you paint it. And once I get one drawn, I'm going to lift up my paper. There, can you see my giraffe? Okay. So if you want to put the second one in, the one that looks, he looks funny because he's looking straight at you. So he's got a little bit different shape. One we're looking at the side, one we're looking kind of more straight on. So decide where you want to put him, her. Because I'm right-handed, I can't lift up this other side. So just be careful not to add too much pressure with your hand on the giraffe that you drew, because it will take that carbon paper and kind of smear it on there. You can always just freehand a lion or something else that you would like on there. So I have my two little giraffes on there. And now it's just like coloring. I'm just going to take the little liner brush, the tiny brush. And you can use your thicker, if you have two different kinds of black, you can use your thicker bodied black. But this time when I pick up my black, I got a glob. See that? You want a glob because you just put it on there and just spread it around. Yeah. Yeah. One of the things about giraffes is they have a bump right here that's just at the base of their neck. That's kind of a characteristic of them. So when you're coming down, instead of just drawing a straight line for their neck, give them that little hump there as it angles down to their hip, their bottom here. Because we're just doing a silhouette, you might not see, I mean, both legs might be together. So see how I painted these? It almost looks like one leg. Depending on too, how dark your brown is behind, you might not even see it so much because it might be pretty dark. But again, I'm just picking up my paint from my little cup here, and I'm not worrying about having a little paint. I kind of want a lot. The other thing with giraffes, they have kind of knobby knees. So we're just painting in our silhouette here, which this is our focus tonight on shape, because we've made the shape of the acacia tree, and now we're with our giraffe, we're making the shape of our giraffe. I kind of like to add a little tail too here. They have little pointed faces, so they have a little forehead and then a kind of a little sharp pointed. If you make it even sharper than you think, it will turn out better, I think, but you decide. But and then they have ears and horns. And their little horns have little knobs on the end of it. You might want to roll your brush after you put a little black on it when you come up here to do their horns, because we don't want it quite so globby. We want to be able to put a little more detail on. If I hold this up there and see their little knobby horns. And then you'll do the same thing with your little giraffe that's facing you if you decided to put one in. Because this little one, which looks like it's either smaller, could either be at the same, it's at the same place in the foreground here as the big one, or it can be smaller because it's farther away. Just be careful with your hand that you don't smear your other one, because it's not dry, it's shiny. Yeah, it might be. You can kind of look back at your drawing too and see if you want to have, you only see 3 legs. It is not a 3-legged giraffe, just because that's the only legs you see at this perspective, right? I don't know how comfortable you are turning your painting around, but if it's easier for you to not get in the big one, you've got the shape. Don't think of it as a giraffe, just think I've drawn this shape and I'm going to fill it with black. So if you want, if your tree is dry and you can rest your hand on that, you can turn this around and paint it from the upside down. Take a breath. This is supposed to be relaxing. Not. I wish I could hear from all of you tomorrow morning when you take your first look at this after you slept overnight. Because you were like,
So much better. than
that sky looks so amazing.
I've only painted one painting ever that I didn't look at the next day. I think it looked way better than I did the next.
And then you can just change it, right? Because there's no mistakes. And the
Right.
next day when you wake up, there it
When you're
is.
painting it, you're so in the details that you see every little flaw, every little thing you didn't need to do. But when you can look at the whole thing the next day, it's when the magic happens. Or somebody holds it across the room for you, and then you can look at it from a ways away.
If you would like to add some birds, I'm going to let my giraffes dry here. If you would like to add some birds, here is the original painting. So I put some birds here in the kind of flying out to the sun. To make a bird, you use your black paint, roll it so you're just got a fine lot of paint on it, bit of paint on it. And the shape of the bird is a stretched out M. If I had a pipe cleaner, I need to do that because then you could really see it. So imagine you had a pipe cleaner and you made it into the shape of an M.
Gonna see what, if there's a message on there. I just want to make sure that you have battery.
This meeting is being recorded.
Oh, okay.
Got it.
I was like,
So in your mind, think a pipe cleaner that you've made into the shape of an M, and then you grab the legs of the M and you stretch it out. So let me draw it on here. So here's what M looks like. There. So there's an M. But if I grab the tail, the bottoms of the M here and pull them apart, stretch them, I'm going to end up with a shape that looks like this, right? So this is the shape you use for a bird. You use the tip of your brush, you come up with this stroke, make a little V, come up, and another little V. And then you add a little dot right here for its body. Okay, so if you do that with your black, it'd be better to have the black be a little thinner. So if you want to put your little liner brush in some water so it flows a little better, roll it out. So you
if you're here, use the black and the cap.
don't, yeah, we don't want it to glob. Anyway, and again, your paintbrush is perpendicular to your canvas. I like to brace my hand on it. So I use my little finger and I put my little finger on my canvas like that. And then the rest of my fingers are above and I can make my M. For a little bird. However many little birds you want going off into the sunset. Remember, if you make them varying sizes, then they will look like some are a little farther away, some a little closer. It's just that stretched out M shape. They are called M birds. Look at them birds. They're flying on the sun. Right? Huh? The comedy show. Yeah. Guess what? No, we're on step 19. Step 19 is to appreciate your painting and own it and sign it. So you have to do it with a lighter color because it's not going to show up on the black if you use a dark color. So make a little blend what you got on your palette.
For library patron, the library will be closing in 15 minutes. Again, the library will be closing in 15 minutes. Thank you.
So somewhere down there in that blackness, give yourself a signature. And then the aha moment is when you, if you chose to put tape on it, it's pulling the tape off after you sign it. My drafts still aren't dry because I can see they're shiny, so you want to be careful with them. But yeah, so here's our picture. We've appreciated it. We've signed it. We have our amazing M birds. And now good luck trying to get the tape off. No. But it is like an aha moment when you pull that tape off and it's got the little, it's like it's already framed. Well, those of you that are here in person tonight, what'd you think? I'm so glad you came. I'm so glad you came. There it is. Look at that. Already like it's in a frame.